They found her standing at the edge of the woods just before dawn, her clothes torn, her face hollow with exhaustion. In her arms, she cradled something wrapped in a tattered blanket. No one dared ask what it was. Not at first, because 6 months earlier, this same woman had been driven from her home, shamed, abandoned, and left to fend for herself in a world that had turned its back on her. Her father had locked the door. Her mother had wept, but said nothing. The neighbors whispered behind closed curtains. And now, she had returned. But the woman who came back was not the daughter they remembered. Something had changed. Something in her eyes. Something in the way she moved, slow and deliberate, like someone who had walked through fire and come out the other side. And whatever she carried in that blanket, whatever she had brought back from the darkness, would unravel everything this quiet town thought it knew about mercy, about family, and about the cost of casting someone out. Her name was Claire, 23 years old, a schoolteacher in a small Pennsylvania town where everyone knew everyone and secrets lasted about as long as Sunday service. She had been loved once, trusted, even admired, but that was before the pregnancy, before the shame, before her own family decided that forgiveness was too expensive and reputation was worth more than blood. What happened to Claire in those 6 months she was gone? Where did she go? How did she survive? And what, or who, did she bring back with her? These are the questions that haunted the people of Millbrook long after Claire walked back into town that cold October morning. But the real question, the one no one wanted to ask out loud, was this: had they destroyed her? Or had they created something far stronger than they ever imagined? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Claire Dawson grew up in a house on Maple Street, the kind of home that looked perfect from the outside. White picket fence, flower boxes in the windows, a father who worked at the local hardware store, and a mother who baked pies for church fundraisers. Claire was their only child, and they had plans for her. Good plans. College, a respectable job, a decent husband, a life that reflected well on the family name. And for a while, Claire played the part beautifully. She graduated top of her class, got her teaching certificate, and landed a job at Millbrook Elementary. The kids loved her. The parents respected her. She was exactly what her family had hoped she would be. But Claire had a secret. His name was Daniel. He was a mechanic who worked at the garage on the edge of town. Quiet, hardworking, not the kind of man her father would have chosen, but the kind of man Claire couldn't stop thinking about. They met by accident one afternoon when her car broke down on the way home from work. Daniel fixed it for free, smiled at her in a way that made her heart skip, and that was it. They started seeing each other in secret. Late-night drives, quiet dinners at diners 2 towns over. Stolen moments in a world that felt like it belonged only to them. Claire knew her parents wouldn't approve. Daniel didn't have a college degree. He didn't wear a suit. He didn't fit into the neat little boxes her father had built around what a future son-in-law should look like. But Claire didn't care. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was living for herself, not for someone else's expectations. And then, 3 months into their relationship, Claire missed her period. She took the test alone in the bathroom of a gas station, hands shaking, heart pounding. 2 lines. Positive. She told Daniel that same night. He didn't flinch. He held her hand, looked her in the eye, and said, "We'll figure this out. Together." But when Claire told her parents, the world she knew came crashing down. Her father's face went red. Her mother's hands flew to her mouth. And the words that followed were not words of comfort or support. They were words of shame, of disappointment, of disbelief. Her father asked one question, his voice cold and sharp. "Who is he?" Claire told him, and that made it worse. A mechanic, a nobody, not the kind of man their daughter was supposed to be with, let alone have a child with. Her father gave her an ultimatum, end the pregnancy or leave. Claire refused. She loved Daniel. She wanted this baby, and she believed, somewhere deep down, that her parents would come around. That love would win, but it didn't. The next morning, her father put her suitcase on the porch and locked the door. Her mother watched from the window, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't say a word. Claire knocked. She begged. She cried, but the door never opened. And so, with nowhere else to go, Claire packed what little she had and walked to Daniel's apartment on the other side of town. He took her in without hesitation. They would build a life together, he promised. They would be a family. But 2 weeks later, Daniel's car skidded off a wet road on his way home from work. He died on impact. And just like that, Claire was alone. No partner, no family, no home. Just a baby growing inside her in a world that had turned its back. Claire tried to hold on. She really did. She picked up shifts at a diner, but her boss let her go when she started showing. She applied for assistance, but the paperwork was endless and the checks never came on time. She lived in Daniel's apartment for as long as she could, but when the rent came due and she couldn't pay, the landlord gave her 3 days to leave. Claire packed her things into a duffel bag and walked out into the cold. She had $47 in her pocket, a growing belly, and nowhere to go. She tried calling her mother once. The phone rang 4 times before someone picked up. Claire heard breathing on the other end, soft and hesitant. "Mom," Claire whispered. There was a long pause, and then the line went dead. That night, Claire sat on a bench outside the bus station and cried until her ribs ached. She thought about going to shelter, but the nearest one was 2 towns over, and she didn't have the fare. She thought about going back to her parents' house, about begging one more time, but the memory of that locked door was too fresh, too painful. So instead, Claire did something she never thought she would do. She walked into the woods. The woods on the edge of Millbrook were old and dense, the kind of place people avoided after dark. There were stories about those woods. Old stories. About people who went in and didn't come out. About strange sounds and stranger lights. But Claire didn't care about stories anymore. She just needed a place to rest, to think, to figure out what came next. She found an abandoned hunting cabin about a mile in. The roof was half collapsed. The windows were broken, but it was shelter. And for the first time in weeks, Claire felt something close to relief. She would stay here just for a little while, just until she could figure things out. But the woods were not empty, and Claire was not alone. At first, it was just small things. The feeling of being watched. The rustle of leaves when there was no wind. The faint sound of footsteps circling the cabin at night. Claire told herself it was animals. Deer, raccoons, nothing to be afraid of. But then she started finding things. A bundle of dried herbs tied with string, left on the cabin's doorstep. A circle of stones arranged in a perfect pattern near the creek. And one morning, a pile of firewood stacked neatly beside the door, still warm to the touch. Someone was out there. Someone knew she was here. And whoever it was, they were helping her. Claire never saw them, but every few days, she would find something new. A jar of preserved fruit, a wool blanket, a box of matches. It was as if the woods themselves were keeping her alive. And slowly, over the weeks, Claire stopped being afraid. She started to feel grateful. She even began leaving things in return. A handwritten note that said thank you. A small drawing she made of the cabin. A wildflower she picked near the creek. She didn't know if whoever was helping her would see these things, but it felt right. It felt human. The days turned into weeks, and Claire developed a routine. She would wake at dawn, gather water from the creek, forage for berries and nuts, and spend her afternoons reinforcing the cabin walls with branches and mud. Her belly grew larger, her movements slower, but her determination never wavered. She talked to her baby constantly, telling her about Daniel, about the life they would have together, about the strength she would need to survive in a world that wasn't always kind. At night, when the cold crept in and the darkness felt overwhelming, Claire would sit by the fire and sing. Lullabies her own mother had sung to her when she was young. Songs about hope and home and love. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, she thought she heard another voice joining hers. Soft, distant, comforting. But when she looked outside, there was never anyone there. One evening, as Claire was preparing a meager dinner of foraged roots and preserved vegetables, she heard something different. Not footsteps, not wind, but crying. The sound of a child crying somewhere deep in the woods. Claire's heart clenched. She grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, following the sound through the trees. The crying grew louder, more desperate, and Claire quickened her pace despite the weight of her pregnancy. She found the source near a fallen oak tree. A little boy, no more than 7 years old, huddled against the trunk, his face streaked with tears and dirt. He was wearing pajamas and slippers, completely unprepared for the cold October night. Hey, it's okay," Claire said softly, kneeling beside him. "What's your name?" The boy looked up at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Tommy," he whispered. "I got lost. I can't find my way home." Claire's mind raced. She knew she should take him back to town, but she was in no condition to make that journey in the dark. And she couldn't leave him out here alone. "Okay, Tommy, listen to me. We're going to go to my cabin, and we're going to get you warm and safe. And tomorrow, when it's light, we'll find your family. Does that sound okay?" Tommy nodded, and Claire helped him to his feet. She led him back to the cabin, wrapped him in her only blanket, and heated up some soup over the fire. As Tommy ate, he told her his story. He had been playing in his backyard that afternoon when he saw a rabbit. He chased it into the woods, thinking it would be fun, but he got turned around and couldn't find his way back. By the time darkness fell, he was completely lost. Claire listened, her heart aching for this child who had wandered into danger through nothing more than innocent curiosity. She thought about his parents, about how terrified they must be. She thought about her own baby, and how she would feel if she ever lost her. That night, Claire stayed awake, keeping the fire burning, watching over Tommy as he slept. And as she sat there, she made a decision. Tomorrow, she would take him home, no matter what it cost her. At first light, Claire woke Tommy and prepared for the journey. She packed what little food she had, filled a canteen with water, and helped the boy into an old jacket she had found in the cabin. Her body ached, her feet were swollen, and every step felt like a battle against exhaustion. But she pushed forward. Tommy held her hand tightly as they walked, and Claire found herself drawing strength from his trust in her. They followed the creek downstream, using it as a guide toward town. The journey that had taken Claire an hour when she first fled now stretched into a grueling 3-hour trek. She had to stop frequently to rest, to catch her breath, to let the sharp pains in her back subside. Tommy was patient, never complaining, never asking to go faster. Instead, he talked to fill the silence. He told Claire about his parents, about his little sister, about his dog named Max. He told her about school and his favorite foods and the treehouse his father was building in the backyard. And with every word, Claire felt the weight of her own loneliness pressing down on her. This boy had a family who loved him, a home waiting for him, which he have, but she pushed those thoughts aside. This wasn't about her. This was about getting Tommy home safely. When they finally emerged from the woods, the sun was high in the sky. Claire could see the edge of Millbrook in the distance, the church steeple rising above the trees. She stopped at the tree line, her heart pounding. She hadn't been this close to town in months. She didn't know what would happen when people saw her. But Tommy tugged on her hand. "Please," he said quietly, "I want to go home." Claire took a deep breath and stepped out of the woods. The first person to see them was Mrs. Patterson, who was hanging laundry in her backyard. She dropped the sheet she was holding and gasped. "Tommy Miller," she shouted. "Oh my God, Tommy." Within minutes, it seemed like the entire neighborhood had appeared. Tommy's parents came running down the street, his mother sobbing, his father's face pale with relief. They swept their son into their arms, holding him so tightly Claire thought he might break. Tommy's mother looked up, her eyes finding Claire's. "You found him," she said, her voice breaking. "You brought him back." Claire nodded, suddenly feeling very exposed. People were staring at her, whispering. She saw recognition dawn on some of their faces. Claire Dawson, the girl who got pregnant, the girl who was sent away. Tommy pulled away from his parents and ran back to Claire. He wrapped his arms around her waist, hugging her tightly. "Thank you," he said. "You saved me." Claire's eyes filled with tears. She knelt down, ignoring the pain in her knees, and looked Tommy in the eye. "You take care of yourself, okay? And stay out of those woods." Tommy nodded solemnly, then ran back to his parents. Tommy's father approached Claire, his hand extended. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We thought we'd lost him. You have no idea what you've done for us." Claire shook his hand, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes. Not judgment, not pity, just genuine gratitude. As the Millers walked away with Tommy between them, the crowd began to disperse. But not everyone left. Some people lingered, their eyes following Claire as she turned to walk back toward the woods. And that's when she heard the voice. Claire! She froze. She knew that voice. She turned slowly and saw her mother standing at the edge of the crowd, her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Claire didn't move, didn't speak. For a long moment, mother and daughter simply stared at each other across the distance that had grown between them. Then her mother took a step forward, and another, until she was standing right in front of Claire, close enough to touch. "You're alive," her mother whispered. "I'm alive," Claire said quietly. Her mother's eyes dropped to Claire's swollen belly, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Claire wanted to be angry, wanted to scream at her mother for standing by while her father threw her out. But standing there, looking at the pain and regret in her mother's eyes, all she felt was tired. "I can't do this right now," Claire said. "I need to go." "Where?" her mother asked desperately. "Where are you staying?" Claire hesitated, then gestured vaguely toward the woods. "Out there." Her mother's face went pale. "In the woods? Claire, you can't. Not in your condition. Please come home. Just for tonight. Please." Claire shook her head. "Dad made it clear I'm not welcome." "Your father isn't home," her mother said quickly. "He's at a conference in Pittsburgh. He won't be back until next week. Please, Claire, let me help you. Let me make this right." Claire looked at her mother, at the desperation in her eyes, and felt something crack inside her. She was so tired, so hungry, so alone, and despite everything, this was still her mother. "One night," Claire said finally. "Just one night." Her mother's face flooded with relief. Yes, of course. Come on." And for the first time in 6 months, Claire Dawson walked back onto Maple Street. The house looked exactly the same. Same white fence, same flower boxes, same welcome mat on the porch. But everything felt different. Her mother unlocked the door and held it open, waiting. Claire stepped inside, and the smell of home washed over her. Fresh coffee, lavender, wood polish, all the scents of her childhood. Her mother led her to the kitchen and immediately began bustling around, pulling out pots and pans, opening the refrigerator, talking rapidly as if words could fill the 6 months of silence between them. Seed. You must be exhausted. Let me make you something to eat. Are you hungry? Of course you are. How about soup? I have chicken noodle and bread. I baked bread this morning. Do you still like bread?" Claire sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where she had eaten breakfast every morning for 18 years, and watched her mother work. She wanted to feel something. Relief, comfort, joy. But all she felt was numb. Her mother placed a bowl of steaming soup in front of her, along with thick slices of warm bread and butter. "Eat," she urged. "Please." Claire picked up the spoon and began to eat. The soup was perfect, just like she remembered. And despite herself, despite everything, she felt tears prick her eyes. Her mother sat down across from her, her hands folded on the table, watching Claire with an intensity that was almost painful. "I tried to stop him," her mother said quietly. "When he told you to leave, I tried. But you know how your father is. When he makes a decision, he doesn't change his mind." Claire swallowed a spoonful of soup and said nothing. "I called the apartment," her mother continued. "Daniel's apartment. I want to check on you. But the landlord said you'd left. And then I tried the shelters, the hospitals, everywhere I could think of. But I couldn't find you. I thought," her voice broke, "I thought maybe you'd gone somewhere far away. Or worse." "You thought I was dead," Claire said flatly. Her mother flinched. "Yes." Claire set down her spoon. "Did you tell Dad you were looking for me?" Her mother looked away. "No. Why not?" "Because he forbade me from contacting you. He said if I went behind his back, he'd leave. And I was afraid. I was a coward." Claire stared at her mother, this woman who had raised her, who had taught her to bake and sew and pray, and felt a wave of something she couldn't quite name. Not anger, not forgiveness, something in between. "You chose him over me," Claire said quietly. Her mother's face crumpled. "I know, and I will regret that for the rest of my life." They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of those 6 months pressing down on both of them. Then Claire's mother reached across the table and took her hand. "I can't change what I did," she said, "but I can do better now. Please, let me help you. You and the baby. Stay here, at least until you have somewhere safe to go." Claire looked down at their joined hands. She thought about the cabin in the woods. The cold nights, "Hey babe, I'm real." The uncertainty, the loneliness. She thought about her baby, about bringing her into the world with nothing and no one. And she thought about Tommy, about the way his parents had held him, about the love and relief on their faces. Every child deserved that, even hers. "Okay," Claire said finally. "I'll stay. For now." That night, Claire slept in her old bedroom. Her mother had kept it exactly the way she left it. Same floral bedspread, same posters on the walls, same teddy bear on the shelf. It was like stepping back in time to a version of herself that no longer existed. Claire lay in bed, her hand resting on her belly, and stared at the ceiling. Her baby kicked, strong and insistent, and Claire whispered into the darkness, "We're going to be okay. I promise. No matter what happens, we're going to be okay." But even as she said the words, doubt crept in. What would happen when her father came home? Would he accept her? Or would he throw her out again? And if he did, where would she go? The questions swirled in her mind, keeping her awake long into the night. But eventually, exhaustion won, and Claire drifted into an uneasy sleep. She dreamed of the woods, of the mysterious woman who had left her gifts, of Daniel standing at the edge of the trees, smiling at her. And when she woke the next morning, sunlight streaming through her window, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Over the next few days, Claire and her mother fell into a careful rhythm. They cooked together, talked in small, cautious increments. Her mother knitted baby clothes, her needles clicking softly as they sat together in the living room. And slowly, piece by piece, they began to rebuild what had been broken. But Claire knew this fragile piece wouldn't last. Her father would be home in 3 days. And when he walked through that door, everything would change. On the morning of the 3rd day, Claire woke to the sound of her mother crying. She found her in the kitchen, a letter in her hands, tears streaming down her face. "What's wrong?" Claire asked, fear tightening her chest. Her mother looked up, her eyes red and swollen. "Your father called. He's coming home today, earlier than expected." Claire's blood ran cold. "Did you tell him I'm here?" Her mother nodded. "I had to. I couldn't lie to him." "What did he say?" Her mother's silence was answer enough. Claire closed her eyes, feeling the walls closing in. "He wants me gone before he gets here, doesn't he? Claire, doesn't he?" Claire repeated, her voice sharp. Her mother's shoulders sagged. "He said if you're still here when he arrives, he'll leave. And he'll take the house. Everything. He said he won't live under the same roof as shame." Shame. That word again. That word that had followed Claire like a shadow, that had stripped her of her home, her family, her dignity. She felt something harden inside her chest. "Then I'll leave," Claire said. "No," her mother said desperately. "You don't have to. I'll talk to him. I'll make him understand." "You can't make him understand something he doesn't want to understand," Claire said. "He made his choice 6 months ago, and you made yours when you let him." Her mother's face crumpled, but Claire felt no satisfaction in the words, only emptiness. She went upstairs and packed the few belongings she had. As she zipped up her bag, she felt a sharp pain in her lower back. She gasped, gripping the edge of the dresser. Too soon. The baby wasn't due for another 3 weeks. But the pain came again, sharper this time, radiating through her abdomen. Claire's breath caught. "No, not now. Not here." She made her way downstairs, each step sending fresh waves of pain through her body. Her mother saw her face and went pale. "Claire, what's wrong?" "I think the baby's coming," Claire said through gritted teeth. Her mother's eyes went wide. "Oh God. Okay. We need to get you to the hospital. Come on." But as they reached the front door, it swung open. And there, standing on the threshold, was Claire's father. He looked older than she remembered, more tired. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and there were deep lines around his eyes. For a moment, no one moved. No one spoke. Father and daughter stared at each other across 6 months of silence and hurt. Then Claire's father's eyes dropped to her belly, to the way she was clutching it, to the pain written across her face. And something shifted in his expression. "She's in labor," Claire's mother said, her voice tight with panic. "We need to get her to the hospital. Now." For a long moment, Claire's father didn't move. And Claire thought, this is it. He's going to turn his back on me. He's going to let me suffer. But then he stepped aside, holding the door open. "Take my truck," he said quietly. "Keys are in the ignition." Claire's mother hurried her out the door and into the truck. As they pulled out of the driveway, Claire looked back and saw her father standing on the porch, watching them go. And for just a moment, she thought she saw something in his face. Something that looked almost like regret. The hospital was a blur of white walls and urgent voices. Nurses in scrubs. Doctors with clipboards. Her mother's hand gripping hers as another contraction tore through her body. The labor was long and difficult. Hours stretched into what felt like days. Claire screamed and cried and begged for it to be over. But through it all, her mother never left her side. She wiped Claire's forehead with a cool cloth. She whispered words of encouragement. She held her hand and weathered every squeeze, every cry, every moment of pain. And when the doctor finally said, "One more push, Claire, just one more," her mother leaned close and whispered, "You can do this. You're the strongest person I know." Claire pushed with everything she had left. And then, cutting through the pain and exhaustion, she heard it. The cry of her baby. A nurse placed the infant on Claire's chest, tiny and wrinkled and perfect. A girl, just like she'd known. Claire looked down at her daughter, at this tiny life she had carried through hell and back, and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. "Hi," Claire whispered, tears streaming down her face. Bubby, I'm your mom, and I've got you. I promise. I've got you." Her mother stood beside the bed, openly weeping. "She's beautiful, Claire. She's perfect." Claire looked up at her mother, and for the first time in 6 months, she smiled. A real smile. Full and genuine and free. "Do you want to hold her?" Claire asked. Her mother's hands trembled as she took her granddaughter into her arms. She gazed down at the baby, her face a mixture of joy and sorrow and overwhelming love. "What will you name her?" she asked softly. Claire thought about everything she had been through. The rejection, the loneliness, the woods, the mysterious woman who had saved her. And Daniel. Always Daniel. "Emily," Claire said, after Daniel's mother. "And Grace," for her middle name. "Emily Grace." Her mother nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's perfect." They stayed in the hospital for 2 days. Claire recovered slowly, learning how to feed Emily, how to change her, how to interpret her cries. Her mother visited every day, bringing flowers and clothes and supplies. But her father never came. On the morning Claire was discharged, her mother arrived with a suitcase. "I packed some things for you and Emily," she said. "Clothes, diapers, formula, everything you'll need." Claire looked at the suitcase, then at her mother. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked quietly. Her mother's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I've been talking to your father," she said, "every night since you went into labor, trying to make him see reason, trying to make him understand what he's throwing away." And Claire asked, though she already knew the answer. "He won't budge," her mother said, her voice breaking. "He says he can't accept this, that it goes against everything he believes." Claire nodded slowly, feeling numb. She had expected this, but it still hurt. Her mother reached in her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you," she said. "It's not much, but it's everything I've been able to save. There's enough here for a deposit on an apartment and a few months' rent." Claire stared at the envelope. "I can't take this." "You can. You will," her mother said firmly. "You're my daughter, and she's my granddaughter, and I will not let you go back to those woods." Claire took the envelope, her hands shaking. "What about you? What will Dad do when he finds out?" Her mother smiled sadly. "Let me worry about that." Claire pulled her mother into a hug. Emily nestled between them. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Her mother held her tightly. "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger 6 months ago, but I'm going to be stronger now. I promise." When they pulled apart, both women had tears in their eyes. Claire's mother kissed Emily's forehead, then Claire's. "You're going to be an amazing mother," she said. "You already are." And with that, she helped Claire and Emily into a taxi and watched as they drove away. Claire looked back once and saw her mother standing on the sidewalk, waving. And she knew, somehow, that everything was going to be okay. The story doesn't end here, but it transforms. Because Claire didn't just survive. She thrived. She found an apartment in the next town over, got a job teaching again, raised Emily with a fierceness and love that shaped her daughter into a strong, compassionate woman. Her mother visited regularly, always when her father wasn't home, always bringing gifts and love and the apologies she could never quite finish saying. Claire never saw her father again. He passed away 7 years later, and even at his funeral, he had never asked about his granddaughter. But Claire had made her peace with that, because she had learned something in those woods, something that woman had shown her without words. That sometimes the family you choose, the life you build from nothing, is stronger than anything handed to you. And as for the woman in the woods, Claire never saw her again either. But every year, on Emily's birthday, Claire would take her daughter to the edge of those woods and leave a small gift. A jar of honey, a bundle of flowers, a handwritten note that simply said thank you. The gifts were always gone by morning. And Claire liked to think that somewhere, in the deep places where the trees grew thick and the world grew quiet, that woman was smiling. Knowing she had saved not just a life, but two. What would you have done in Claire's place? Would you have gone back to your family? Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have walked a different path entirely? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you of the strength we all carry inside us when the world pushes us to our limits, then subscribe to our channel. Because stories like this, stories of resilience and transformation and the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters, these are the stories that matter. These are the stories that remind us who we really are. Thank you for watching.